It's starting. That's right. The viola that I'm making for my friend Joshua. It's starting. Well, the wood's not here yet, but I can begin the most preliminary of work. I can begin tracing the outline of this photo and begin to make the mold for it. The original instrument that we're using as inspiration is this bad boy right here. This is the Mahler Stradivarius viola. It's called the Mahler because it was acquired by the foundation that owns it on the 100th, well, what would have been Gustav Mahler's 100th birthday. And Joshua is a huge Mahler fan, so this is kind of meant to be in a way. Interesting thing about this viola, it was made in 1672, and every evidential indicator shows that this was the first viola that Antonio Stradivari ever made. And violas are something of a rarity for him. He has about 600 surviving violins to his name, but there are only 15 violas that are surviving that he made. So it's not something he dabbled in a whole lot. And interestingly enough, some of his later violas aren't really regarded as that great, when compared to other Italian makers like Testore, Amati, Guarneri, Ruggeri, Montagnana. But oddly enough, his very first viola, built on a wider pattern than some of the ones that he would use later in his life, this one is regarded as an exceptional instrument. One thing that's unusual about the Mahler Strad is its choice of wood. While it still has a spruce top, just about like every other instrument out there, instead of having maple for the sides and the back, the Mahler Strad instead uses curly poplar. See, poplar is not quite as hard as maple, and what an effect that has acoustically is that while it may not project and generate as much volume as a maple-backed instrument, the trebles on it are very creamy, and the bass notes on it are just downright chocolatey and just fat sounding. And that's exactly what you want in a viola. Now, this wasn't the wood combination that Strad always used in his violas or in his cellos. I think really he just used what he had laying around. So there really isn't like a magic code to unlock in terms of wood choice. Is that it's up to a good maker to do the best they can with the wood that they have. So that's just part of the game, really. We should also take note of the difference in size between a violin and a viola. Now, violins, their size is almost universal, which is to say the back length, which is measured from here all the way down to here, is about, in this case, 356 millimeters, or just about dead on for 14 inches. Now, a lot of violas, their back length, on the other hand, it's a fairly typical size is about 16-inch back length. This one is about 16 and a quarter, or to be exact, it's 412 millimeters in back length, measured from here all the way down to the lowest edge of the front plate. The extra size is necessary because the viola plays in a slightly lower register than a violin. The viola is tuned an entire fifth lower, where a violin is tuned E, A, D, G. The viola is tuned A, D, G, C. So it's got that low C string that the violin just does not have. In order to play those bass notes well, the viola needs to be a little broader in size, and it needs to have a longer length, it needs to have a longer string length as well. And it also has much thicker ribs. Violin ribs are about 32 millimeters from edge to edge. Violas can push about 38, 39 on the high end. And all that really amounts to is that the viola is a larger box for air to vibrate inside of, and it needs that extra breathing room to make those low notes really resonate and project well. The billets of spruce and curly poplar are on their way from Slovakia and are, according to the tracking information, stuck in a warehouse in Fort Worth, which is a stone's throw away from me. And that is extra frustrating because I really want to start doing stuff. But what I can do is begin working on the mold. Every string instrument in the violin family was made on a mold. And this one was the mold that I used for making my violin. This is the form that I used to bend the ribs around and basically make this thing take shape. So how can I use a photograph to begin drawing the mold? There's a couple of things that I have to account for. The first one is the amount of overhang from the edge and the thickness of the ribs themselves. The overhang is a measure of how far the plate sticks out from the rib. You'll notice these are not flat with each other. These plates have a little bit of overhang over the edge. And you also need to account for the thickness in the ribs. This is maple and it's about 1 millimeter thin. So I know that this picture is a perfect 1-to-1 scale because I measured the back length of this at exactly 412 millimeters. That means that the scale on every other part of this photo is going to be accurate. Now, it's about 4 millimeters from the edge to the purfling. The purfling is this dark inlay going around the edge of the plates. Now, the amount of overhang on the edge is about 2.5 millimeters, and we have to also account for the thickness of the rib itself, which is just about 1 millimeter thick. So let's take this edge and go about 3.5 millimeters in, and that works out to very close to this outer line of the purfling, which is about 4 millimeters away from the edge. Now, to account for the 0.5 millimeter difference, I'm just going to trace just around the outside of the outer line of the purfling, and that is going to be the line of my mold. Now you'll notice the mold does not have these corners here because these corners are shaped by blocks which will be glued in place on the mold. And once the blocks are glued in place, those blocks are then shaped to the desired curvature that those ribs need to follow. And the blocks get broken off the mold and they stay inside the instrument to give it strength. With 1 millimeter thick ribs, that's going to give me about 2.5 millimeters to the edge. So that ought to work out perfectly. And there is the outline for my mold that I need to make. Now, these lines, I kind of drew them because I decided I need to make these blocks a little bit bigger to accommodate the larger curves. So, yeah, this is what I got to make. Now to buy some plywood. So my wife was asking me about monetizing my TikTok channel, and according to the studio thing, looking at it, I've earned all of 2 cents for the amount of work that I've done uploading videos on this platform, which, you know, that's not a big deal. I did not get into this game to get rich. That being said, it would be nice to have a little something come out of it. So I got a Cash App. So if you think what I do is cool and you like it and you got a couple of bucks to spare, just think of it as a tip jar, and anything is appreciated. Y'all rule.